Hello, I'm Carl Jones and welcome to Midlands Business Update, Big Centre TV's new show which looks at the news and views of industry and commerce across the region. This week's dominated of course by one topic, George Osborne's pre-election budget. But of course the question is it good for the West Midlands business? Is it bad for West Midlands business? Or is it a case of giving with one hand and taking away with the other? Well, I'm joined in the studio by three local business people who I'm sure will all have a strong view on this, coming at it from different perspectives. Paul Bennett is a past president of the Black Country Chamber and partner at law firm George Green in Cradley Heath. Colin Mills is director of Incomm Training and Business Services based at Aldridge. And Tony Elliot is a senior tax planner who was involved in a live budget event this week at Wolverhampton Business Solutions Centre, where they were dissecting and analysing the Chancellor's speech as it happens. Welcome, everybody. Let's start with Tony then. Having watched the budget with a gathering of local business people, what was the general mood? How did it go down?
It was a difficult budget for the Chancellor to deliver, being so close to the election, and he clearly didn't want to be seen to be overtly electioneering. There was a very positive vibe to the meeting. We had a debate after we watched the event and then broke out, gathered our thoughts and then had an hour or so of debate and questions afterwards. And there was a very positive vibe in the room. While the Midlands didn't obviously get any funding from the government, there was talk of the North, there was talk of the South East. There was £60 million given for some energy research. There was £100 million given for research into driverless car technology. So there's certainly money being pumped into the Midlands, which was appreciated. But infrastructure-wise, unfortunately, it was sadly lacking this week.
What sort of businesses were at the event? What sort of businesses tend to interact with things like this?
There was a really good mix of businesses, from representatives of some of the larger employers across the Midlands to small one-man bands that had been going for maybe 1 year. There was somebody there that was at the same event last year when he literally just started his business. So it was good to see that he got through the first 12 months of trading and he was there and he was positive about his experiences over the last 12 months.
And I guess I should ask you then, with your tax planning hat on, the end of the annual tax return was one of the things that Mr Osborne talked about. What's the implications of that?
It's very early days on that, and I'm not sure that a huge amount of thought has been given to the implications of that. Obviously, accountants broke out into cold sweats when we heard that the tax returns were going, as that's a big part of what we do. But the government are talking about a digital online tax account, which sounds very grand, and probably, to be honest, isn't that different from an electronic tax return. There will still need to be information that's exchanged between the taxpayer and the government. Now, today, the tax return very much is a tax return submitted, and HMRC are checking to a certain extent what they already know, because they get fed information from banks and from building societies and from employers. So they know a huge amount already. So if that information is going to them anyway, perhaps there is no need for a lot of people to file a tax return. How self-employed people and people that own rental properties will cross that barrier between tax returns and no tax returns remains to be seen.
So you're not quite out of a job yet? Then,
one hopes not, no.
Now, Colin, you obviously are coming at things from a training point of view. And tell us a bit about your business.
We're a training-based business based in Aldridge, and we deal primarily with the manufacturing sector and very much the small, medium enterprises. So the initiative to promote apprenticeships and for the SMEs by the cutting of the NI and for the employer, and next year the cutting for the people under 21 to promote even more apprentices going into industry is a positive move from our point of view.
How do you feel businesses are interacting with apprenticeships these days? There's been a huge amount of money ploughed into promoting them, hasn't there?
There has, and it's been very positive throughout. From our own point of view, we're just about entering our third year of growth with apprentices. Industry went through a spell where there was no apprentice intake or hardly at all. That's turned around and we've got good numbers coming in, and it can only be good for the supply chain and the growth of the Black Country in that point of view.
So in general terms, how do you feel the budget was yesterday? Was it?
In general terms, it probably didn't do a lot across anywhere really, but certainly from a training point of view and SME and apprentices, yes, there were some good positives that came out of it.
Excellent, so upbeat stuff. Now Paul, you're a past president of Black Country Chamber, but obviously wearing many hats. What was your take yesterday? Looking at it from a legal point of view, from a Black Country business point of view, from which point of view do you look at it from?
Oh, from all different points of view, really. I think it was a budget that was trying to appeal, I think, to the electorate generally. So there was, I think, bits in it for everyone, increases in personal allowances for both people on lower incomes and then the increase in the personal allowance for people who are higher rate taxpayers. So across really the spectrum of earners, there was something in it for savers. There was something in it from young people, as we've just mentioned. So there was an element of electioneering, but I think one of the positives was that there were no big giveaways, and what business wants to see, I think, is a period of stability. We still have a deficit. The government hasn't been able to reduce the deficit to the extent that it was wanting to, and we have this debt burden that is increasing year on year. So the Chancellor really didn't have much in the kitty to play with, but I think the general view is that he did reasonably well.
I know there was a lot of tit for tat on both sides of the Commons, where George Osborne is telling us that we are better off now in 2015 than we were in 2010. The opposition are suggesting that the feeling out there doesn't mirror the statistics. How do you think businesses and workers in the Black Country generally feel at the moment?
I think the economy is certainly picking up, but there are pockets in the Black Country where we still have quite considerable challenges. So if you look at unemployment is dropping nationally, and on a national basis, I think we're around about 5.8% in terms of the unemployment rate at the moment. But there are some parts of Birmingham and the Black Country where the unemployment rate is far higher. And one of the things that we need to do is to promote better engagement between learners and between businesses. We've talked about some of the advantages in the budget around encouraging apprentices. But as a chamber, we thought maybe that the government could be doing a bit more. So, for example, where you have got businesses that are engaged with schools. I'm proud to be a school governor myself of the RSA Academy in Tipton. And we find lots of business people are getting into schools, but that's taking up their own time. And maybe we need to get more businesses engaged in schools and colleges and look at tax breaks for those people, particularly in smaller businesses that are putting their time into supporting those types of initiatives.
Is your impression that schools are engaging with the business community and with what's happening politically and with the budget? Was there a real interest in that?
Absolutely. I mean, we were really proud yesterday. We had a budget seminar within the chamber, and we had that budget seminar at Highfield School in Wolverhampton. So it was great to hear their sixth form economics students and to have them participating with business people on the day.
Because there's much of talk, isn't there? I mean, Tony, I'll ask you really about people being disengaged from the political side of the economy, that it's all about political point scoring and you don't really know who to believe. And did you feel that the businesses that were at the seminar came with almost a shopping list of things they'd like to see in the budget and were ticking them off to see if they happened?
Again, I think because of the proximity to the general election, there was a general feeling that the Chancellor was unlikely to give away huge amounts. So while people had expectations, fingers crossed, the reality, they got what probably they were expecting deep down. In the end, it was very difficult for the Chancellor to give a lot away. A lot of, he reminded us about a lot of the measures that he spoke about at the budget in 2014 and at the autumn statement in December, which are about to come into effect. So the things, and this is the way the budget cycle's working now, we're talking about things that are actually not going to be with us for 12 months, sometimes longer. So he reminded us that we've got a lower rate of corporation tax that's about to drop in. He reminded us that we've got a £500,000 investment allowance for all businesses of all sizes at the moment, and he hinted that while that's due to drop on the 1st of January back down to £25,000, there was a mention that will be reviewed and perhaps a higher level will be set from January. So that's sending out encouraging messages to business that he is thinking about them, he is dropping their tax rates, he is giving them tax relief on some of their capital expenditure, which is all positive stuff. It's good to get businesses feeling good, seeing that they are getting tax breaks for money that they're spending.
Colin, from your point of view, what would be the 3 or 4 maybe points that you really think are the most important when it comes to a budget like this in the economy as it stands at the moment?
Well, I think it's difficult to say there, Carl. I mean, it's the industry is looking for support for growth. I think that's probably the key one that comes out to me and the companies that we work with. You know, they're looking for, Paul mentioned earlier, stability, and but at the same time, some initiatives to keep that growth ticking along and slowly progressing. And again, looking at initiatives to promote people back into work and rewarding them for being back into work. And if you can aim that at the young people and encourage the SMEs to bring in young people and develop them for a future career, that's got to be the right way forward.
Excellent. We'll take a break. After the break, we'll have some more from our expert panel. We'll also be taking a look at some of the other West Midlands business stories which have been making the headlines over the next few days. And I think one of the things we'll also be talking about, which the Chancellor hinted at yesterday, are export. He's highlighted China, which I'm sure Birmingham Airport are very pleased about. But what about the other countries? Welcome back to Big Centre's new weekly show, Midlands Business Update. With me to discuss the current hot topics are Paul Bennett, Colin Mills and Tony Elliot. We'll chat some more with them in just a moment. First though, let's just take a quick look at some of the other West Midlands business headlines. We start with discount supermarket chain Lidl, which has announced plans to create up to 500 jobs with a new distribution centre near the M6 in Wednesbury. The building will be the size of 6 football pitches and construction is expected to start soon. Midshire Business Systems has opened its new base in West Bromwich. The office technology business, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary, has moved from its old base in Nechells in Birmingham in an investment worth more than £2 million. The number of passengers using Birmingham Airport continues to soar. More than 630,000 used the terminal in February. That's a rise of 8.4% on the same time last year. And it follows the airport's record-breaking start to the year in January. Now, everyone recognises it, but it seems no one's entirely sure what to do with it. The future of an iconic office building in the centre of Birmingham remains in some doubt this week. City planners have blocked the demolition of the NatWest Tower in Colmore Row, saying they won't give permission until there are some clear plans in place for its replacement. Development company Sterling Property Ventures and funders Rockspring want to demolish the 1970s building and create a small open space while plans for a new building are drawn up. I think it's a case of watching this space. And a West Midlands apprentice has been pinpointed as one of the future stars of engineering at the Manufacturing Technologies Association annual awards. Scott Gullick, who's a third-year apprentice at PP Electrical Systems in Walsall, won the Young Engineer title at the glittering ceremony. Always good to end our headlines on a high. Now back to our panel. I think it's clear from some of those stories there that there is a lot of movement in the economy. There's a lot of investment going on. Do we put two and two together and decide that confidence is starting to come back, maybe? I'll direct that to our Black Country Chamberman first, Paul.
Yeah, I think there's definitely increased confidence within the economy. Certainly businesses are recruiting and I think businesses are looking to invest as well. Great to hear that Midshire have opened up those new facilities in West Bromwich as well.
Because we're not talking small investments here, we're talking there's a lot of medium-sized companies in the region who have maybe had plans that they tend to put on hold if you're not certain about an economy. You don't want to plough money into things like commercial property expansions particularly. This is good sign, isn't it? Because all of these investments mean new jobs.
Absolutely, and I was actually at the Midshire office opening last week, and it was great. This is a business that has nine new apprentices, all recruited locally. So this is a growing business that's employing local people. And
so, Colin, do you see with businesses like this, is this part of the reason why your company is finding itself in demand so much at the moment?
Yes, there is an correlation there that will happen. The growth within the Black Country is definitely, is seen. The companies that we work with are all busy. They're looking for growth in their manpower force. They're looking for apprentices, and throughout there is a sign of positive that things are on the up.
What do you think there's more could be done in any particular area, or different priorities that maybe could be adopted over the next few months?
I think again, it's getting that name of the Black Country recognised once more. It's also getting the message across, particularly in the sector that we work in, manufacturing engineering, that it is a growth area. It went through the doldrums. People were looking at jobs outside of that sector, and it's now trying to raise that profile that once again, particularly to young people at school, this is the area to move into. This is where your future career can be, an exciting career, and there is growth there for them. And as long as we can get that message across to the young people, then we've got a good chance of keeping on growing within the Black Country.
I mean, bringing things a little bit back to the budget statement yesterday, I asked Tony this, that we talk about the region as a whole, the West Midlands region being so successful. There's a feeling, isn't there, that actually the region's profile in other parts of the country maybe isn't quite as high as it could be. You know, the Chancellor talks about powerhouses in the north. What's the north? Is the Midlands the north, or is the Midlands included in this? Or?
And that was very much the flavour of the debate yesterday, was where does the north-south, is it north of Watford? There is a risk that the Midlands will get squeezed, so it's good if we can see large sums of money coming into the Midlands with investment. I think it's essential that the government throws support into the manufacturing sector, which is so prevalent around these parts, particularly the automotive industry, and things can really grow on the back of that. So matters like bringing apprenticeships, offering tax breaks for employing young people, extending the research and development regime, the tax break for research and development, which can apply to a lot of manufacturers, that's been extended with effect from April. So all these sorts of measures will help manufacturers to make more money, to grow, and then obviously that leads on into exporting, hopefully.
And of course, export was touched on in the budget. Slightly bizarrely, specifically exporting to China, as I touched on before the break. I'm sure Birmingham International Airport will be delighted with that, because they've just launched some new flights to China, so the links are in place already. But what's the export picture, and why China?
Well, China's obviously a high growth market. I think the export picture is encouraging, but we need to get more smaller businesses exporting. We shouldn't be too prescriptive in terms of where they're exporting to. Clearly there's depressed demand within the Eurozone at the moment. I have to say UKTI locally are doing a fantastic job, and I would encourage all prospective exporters to engage with UKTI. They can get some tremendous support there. But I think as a chamber, what we were looking for the government to do was to give a broader range of support and increasing funding to exporters, so that effectively the exporters have got the flexibility to decide how they spend that additional money and where they spend it and which markets they target.
Do you think it was a case then, as we said earlier, of the Chancellor just trying to dip his toe into as many different bits of water as he could and say, well, we'll give a bit for export, we'll give a bit for savers, we'll give a bit for pensioners? Or...
Absolutely, and it's a nice headline, isn't it? We're supporting exports to China, and some of our bigger businesses in the region, JLR, for example, have had a lot of success exporting to that Chinese market.
What about our local pubs? A penny off a pint of beer? We're going to make a difference to that, do you think?
It helps. It's going to help the brewing industry across the Midlands. It's always, that's the thing that always grabs the headlines in the red top papers. So it's a penny off the pint for the working man.
I thought probably more relevant was freezing the duty on fuel for.
Again, the comment in the room from yesterday was it 10p off a tank with the Tories? It was kind of a catchy soundbite. But yes, it's good to see that fuel escalator has been frozen now for I think three years. We haven't had the expected duty rise. Still hasn't been abolished completely, which would be good. It's still there, lurking in the background, but it's certainly not been exercised for 3 years.
And Colin, as a business director, the Chancellor also hinted that there's going to be this long sought after review of the business rates system. I imagine you were jumping up in the air and welcoming that with open arms.
Yes. I think, like any small business, it's one of the burdens that we have to cope with, and any review of that process and bringing it more into line with how the company operates and looking forward to make profits and generate has got to be a help.
And what about, and the other, of course, the other thing which we haven't mentioned yet is the help for the housing industry. This ISA connected scheme to help get more first-time buyers into the market, which it was slightly worrying that the Chancellor almost had to explain why it was doing what it was doing, and that it sounded a little bit complicated. Do you think? It
is quite complicated, and we had a bit of a look at it last night as we were preparing budget seminar material, and it's quite restricted. There's a kind of £1,000 initial start to it, and then you have to build it up gradually. A lot of people thought they could put their £12,000 in and get their immediate help from the government, so they could go out and put a deposit down. But it's something that has to be built up over a fairly lengthy period of time. So while it's good news, it's perhaps not as great as the Chancellor thought. It was possibly an opportunity missed to do with housing, because there is this desperate need for more housing. And was there a chance to bring some tax breaks in to encourage maybe use of some kind of redevelopment tax relief of existing property, or extend the land remediation relief regime, which allows redevelopment of brownfield sites? Those sorts of things may kind of push the building industry into action, but that hasn't been put across just yet.
It's probably easier to understand some of the policies for people at the opposite end of the spectrum, for pensioners who are now able to have far more flexible access to their annuities, and also not having to pay interest on their savings.
Yeah, there's a lot of measures over the last 12 to 18 months that have been very much to do with the pensioners. So the pension freedom, the transfer of personal allowance between people that are on low income, the interest saving. There's a measure coming in a couple of weeks' time which it gives the first £5,000 worth of interest completely tax-free. So all of these things have been geared up towards the pensioners. So having been accused of attacking pensioners about 2 years ago in the budget, there's been a lot of measures since then that have been designed to bring them back on board again.
So I think, in summary, and we've got a quick summary, there is actually something for everyone in this budget, and there's lots of reasons to be optimistic.
I think so. I think what we need to do, though, is we need to think about our regional situation. I think we desperately need a combined authority. Lots of talk about the Northern Powerhouse. We need to be talking about Greater Birmingham as the beating heart of Britain.
That's definitely a debate for another day. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thanks for joining us on Midlands Business Update, and we'll be back again soon. Thank you very much.